Thank you so much. Mix it. Next up, we have Kevin, who will be talking about something that I think at one point or another most of us will encounter, especially during our time at RBC, which is political correctness and our sensitivity to it. So give a clap to Kevin.
Felly. Hello, multiracial, multicultural people of RBC. So political correctness had been an issue and something that gets on heated debate for quite some time now. And it's been also the whole idea that one is offended by something they see or something they listen is now something that gets built in governmental and political scale. And since I've seen many people who are getting sensitive all about like political correctness, and even in RBC, I'd like to talk to you on my take on why being so politically correct and demanding people to only talk in a politically correct manner may not be an optimal thing for society to do, or even be a problematic thing for society to do. The first off, before I get to it, I'd like to raise a question to you guys on. And I don't want you guys to answer it right now, but just keep it in your mind throughout the talk. That the question is, just because I've been offended, or just because my feelings been hurt, does that give me right to shut you? Or if I rephrase this a bit, just because I feel offended, does that give me right to violate your freedom of speech? I just want you guys to keep that in mind for now, and I'll get to it. So. First problem with the political correctness is that it involves in this postmodernistic understanding of there are infinite ways to interpret even finite set of situation or sentiments, which basically means that, and that all of them should be respected, and which basically means that everything that people take in as offensive, no matter how illogical or unreasonable that can be, that should be taken into consideration whenever you say something. And this is wrong in two ways. First, because you cannot possibly respect all moral values or ideas, as all moral values or ideas tend to conflict or be in opposition point to another. And a good example of this is homosexuality and Christianity. And because there are these things that you cannot respect to an exactly same extent, now we get to a point where we make hierarchies in which one to prioritize over the other. And second wrong point about this whole idea is that although yes, there are infinite ways to interpret certain situation, that does not mean there are exactly same number of valid interpretation that could be held, which basically implies that people can be offended by something that wasn't even intended to be offensive, or something that was, or offended by some unreasonable justification. And this gets to this whole problem of limiting people's language usage and limiting people's freedom of speech. And when it comes to freedom of speech, it had been the whole idea that one can express and talk about what they believe in or what they think of. It had been this boundary where people do not question but take it, although how many times authority figures in the past tried to control it or tried to manipulate it over certain individuals. Well, with political correctness nowadays, that boundary can be very easily crossed, and to me it seems very ridiculous that how by saying someone is offended, that boundary that had not been questioned can just be crossed very easily. And some may ask, why is it ridiculous? Wouldn't it be a good thing that people only get to hear what they want to hear and not feel offended at all? Well, in an ideal society where people think of same thing and then express only the same ideas, then yes, that may be the case. But in a practical world where people are different, it's not the case because, well, people come from different background, different culture, and different prior knowledge, which shapes our different moral values, different reaction to certain things, and even the senses of humor. And it is because nobody is that morally virtue, meaning nobody is morally excellent, we tend to even question and we tend to oppose one another's moral values and moral understanding of each other. Yet with nowadays political correctness, it tends to completely ignore all that and then say, because I am offended, you should not say that. And what's behind the phrase, I am offended, is basically saying, well, regardless of all the intrinsic difference that individuals have, and regardless of our difference in moral values that we have been shaped through our lives, I do not care and I do not want to listen, as whatever you say or your expression of yourself, I take that as a moral and personal and even emotional attack to myself. And from the other side's perspective, they're just expressing themselves. And this is problematic in two ways, because first, this kind of thing can happen when someone is just because someone is just expressing themselves, and that is originating from the intrinsic difference of individual, or nothing else than that. And by someone limiting that, that's basically taking away their freedom of speech when they are just expressing their and being themselves. And second thing is that people can be shutting others down, even regardless of how valid or reasonable certain sentiments could have been. And this basically means when people, or when someone is actually making a claim that can be reasonable, because someone felt offended to it, that immediately gives them justification to stop them from talking. And which is ironic, because political correctness involves in this idea that every idea should be respected, but at the same time, if it goes against political correctness, now that's justifiable to be shut. And to me, that doesn't seem fair nor free for a component of a society. And this leads to this whole another issue of safe space in universities. For those who don't know, safe space basically means a place in university where people cannot say anything that can come off offensive, which, to be very honest, blew my mind, because college is not home. You know, university is a place where all these multicultural people gather together and then basically interact to challenge one another more values, and through that interaction, people develop themselves. Yet, because now there's these people who are saying, oh, this is offensive, so you cannot say that, that basically breaks the whole core understanding of why universities are there for. And if you really don't want to listen to anything that is challenging your moral values, you can stay home and you don't have to leave your bedroom. Then nobody's gonna be challenging your moral values. And another issue is that because there are these people who are very intensely sensitive toward political correctness, now there's all these people who cannot say whatever they want to say, as they are afraid to be judged, and they are afraid to be saying something that is politically incorrect. Because I lived in China and I met people who were coming from Western world, and it was very saddening and, to be honest, detrimental when I see people who lived in freest society cannot freely express themselves. People who should be coming from freest society are not free, and these kind of things matter because it even gets to parliamentary or governmental scale. For example, in Sweden, where people cannot engage in honest debates and honest discussion about social issues or political issues, as those people in the parliament are very afraid to say something that can come off offensive. And what's even more crossing the line, or even more surprising, is the fact that people can get punished for saying something that is politically incorrect, or that is saying something that is offensive. Well, something that crossed line for me was when in UK this guy was prosecuted for offensiveness. And I mean, yes, it theoretically sounds good if you guys are if you're offended and then basically punishing that person, or by some person challenging or opposing your perspective, you can punish that person. It does theoretically sounds good, yet to me reminded a lot of dictatorship. And don't get me wrong, I lived in China for half of my life, and there are these certain set of things that you can and cannot say, and by saying something you cannot say, you basically get punished. And which applied same in China, where from Chinese government, by saying something that is offensive to our Chinese government, you're punished there, and then by saying something that challenges their view, you're punished. And to me, and I hope for you guys too, that is nowhere free society. And people may ask, what if it was a complete hate speech? Wouldn't that be justifiable to be shut? Well, my first response to this would be, who is it and what is it to judge whether or not something is hate? Because what I consider hate, it will be different from what you consider hate. And when it comes to political correctness, wouldn't it be typical that everybody can consider whatever something is offensive or challenging as a hate speech? And well, I had this example. So in public, I once said I enjoy eating meat, and vegans came up to me saying, I'm disgusting and I am spreading hate on vegan community. Well, this is funny and ironic at the same time because, well, first of all, I'm the one who got called I'm disgusting, and yet they tell me I'm spreading hate, apparently. And, well, I mean, that wasn't logical for me, okay? And also, besides of all these things, how do you not offend anybody, right? Like, let's say you're talking to one person. Sure, you can try not to offend that person, although you don't know what the point they'll get offended is. You can try not to offend that person. Let's say you're talking to 10 people, 100, 1,000, or when it comes to social media, even millions. How would you not offend a single person there? Well, to be honest, I think it's impossible. And if you are really afraid to say anything that can come off offensive, I feel like you wouldn't be able to say anything that is important, anything controversial, or anything that can perhaps even offend someone by a little bit of degree. That is like, it's just, I don't know why people will be so offended on anything, but, well, so what I'm trying to take out from here is the fact that for those who are so intensely sensitive towards political correctness and take anything offensive, I really want you guys to think in terms of course, there are these things that, yes, that can be insulting and that can be very attacking to you. For example, like a cuss word that has no meaning but only intention to hurt you, then sure, that kind of does justify to stop them from talking. But I want you guys to question and then think on whether or not you feel hurt because it is something that they actually try to insult you, or is it because of the fact that there's an intrinsic difference between individuals and in terms of moral values and even sense of humor. And when you guys do consider those things, and then instead of shutting people and engage in interaction, I feel like this society will turn out to be more of a society will have individuals where people can actually engage in honest discussion and debate instead of trying to shut the other and then cause even further conflict. And to be honest, I want to live in that kind of society, and I hope you guys do too. Thank you.